Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto, Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the entire United States. And of course, good morning to the entire world receiving our signals via the magic of El Internet. How are my peeps doing today? I imagine everybody's doing just fine. But you know what, folks? Without further ado, let's go ahead and get busy with the geniuses in the studio. We're talking about whom again? We're talking about Jack Van Bever and Howard Reynolds. You like that, Howard?
Well, if he's listening, he likes it.
Oh, you are at your lonesome today.
Yes, a single genii today.
You have the single genii today. Well, you know what? We are going to do just great because we've got you, man. Anyway, talk to me. What's going on today, my brother?
Well, I read your headlines this morning, so I'm going to make some comments. House Republicans plan to slash $880 billion from the federal budget. Where will it come from? It'll come from you. According to a nonpartisan analysis released Wednesday, millions of Americans will get dropped by their health insurance. Ask yourself why. Why all this mean, hard-hearted policy coming from the Republican House and the Dinos sitting on their hands complicitly? The Trump plan is to put all social and economic institutions into chaos, smash them on the ground, then pick up and pocket the pieces to share with his billionaire a-hole friends.
Okay.
Trump works for them, not you. Remember, unregulated capitalism is a voracious animal, and it only knows hunger, and it will devour all, even itself.
Amen. It will devour all, even itself. Look, folks, that he's absolutely right. We have a whole lot to talk about today. And of course, today is Thursday, which it means it is Aquino Day. Neil Aquino, the founder of the Houston Democracy Project. Good morning, Neil. How are you doing today, my dear brother?
Oh, very good. Good morning, local and global audience, and appreciative to be here. It looks like an excellent day ahead.
Yeah, we are going to have an excellent day because we're going to make it an excellent day of informing, an excellent day of doing all of that. Anyway, let me tell you what we're going to cover today. First of all, Neil has quite a bit to talk about, both with what the mayor is doing with the budget, as well as some issues with the police department and other things. I want to slice a bit of time to talk about that $880 billion cut to Medicaid, which is coming to fruition with actual write-ups that are starting. They're floating a whole lot of stuff. I want to make sure all of you know that they're lying to you. When they tell you they're not cutting, they are lying to you. And if they can lie to you before the bill is passed to get the bill passed, imagine who's going to be left holding the bag. So I want to cover a little bit about that as well. And if we have some time, I want to talk about the idea. Three states, they always call the laboratories for our laws. Things start in the states. We all know, those of us who know Keynesian economics or basic economics 101 understands the idea of taxation and who something called the marginal propensity to consume that makes people spend or not make spend, but makes economic activity occur. Massachusetts, Washington, and Rhode Island proved it with taxing the rich. We'll talk about that if we get a chance. Otherwise, the article is there for you to read. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get to our brother Neil, who has a lot to talk about. So, Neil, talk to me, my dear brother.
Great. Good morning. We'll talk some local politics, local democracy today. One thing I want to cover just briefly, this is a bit outside of what I normally talk about, but Mayor Whitmire has a new city budget from the Chronicle, a $7 billion budget with no tax increase or no new fees. Although he says he's open to that, which I kind of believe. So, but at the moment, the city was facing a budget deficit more than 330. He says it's balanced. I don't know about that. I watched a 35-minute press conference. It was very light on details. We're using Metro dollars for purposes it wasn't intended for. And they have no idea what federal cuts are coming. He was asked about that. Substantial money goes to the health department, the housing department. I'm not an expert in this. I'm not going to become a budget expert. But I think folks ought to be aware of it. There's a public hearing at the Fondi Recreation Center Saturday, May 17th at 10 o'clock. And I just encourage folks on through the Chronicle, KUHF's been having some reports. Watch City Council on HTV, and give it some thought, or like these numbers add up, and a lot for the federal cuts that are coming. Nor can they figure out if we have a hurricane. We're not getting FEMA money. Sarah Huckabee Sanders could get FEMA money in Arkansas, and she worked for the guy. So I just ask people to be mindful of it, and if it's of interest to you, contact City Council, watch it, and it's a big deal, and there's not enough public involvement in it.
You just mentioned about the budget, and you talk about this being outside of your realm. I don't know. The budget should be inside of all our realms, and I think you did a good synopsis of that. But here's the thing that concerns me. How do you, and this is about politicians lying to you. You go in with a $300 billion deficit or so, I believe?
330 million.
A $330 million deficit. You go ahead and you claim that you're going to increase the salaries of police officers. You're going to not only increase the salaries of police officers, but you're going to give them the overtime when they go to court, a minimum of 4 hours instead of just 2 hours if they stay. And you're going to tell me that you're going to increase your cost and still balance the budget, and at the same time use funds that you shouldn't be able to use, let's say from Metro, I think is what you said. And and then at the same time, you've been sued for using a misappropriation of monies that should have gone to one place that you use another. You just settled that lawsuit. Look, this is sort of magical thinking. So I think people need to go ahead and do their due diligence and query their politicians as to the veracity of this purported balance.
The drainage suit, the flood money suit.
Yes.
Right. Yes. So, and they settled that. It was a little bit interesting. They settled that with two plaintiffs. So we were supposed to be spending $100 million a year as dictated by a public vote. Okay, this is a public vote. We weren't. This was under Mayor Turner as well. They were spending money for other purposes. The plaintiffs initially didn't want to deal with it. And then they realized he was going to lose. They have worked out a suit. But where they're not working out, not a money issue, but on Proposition B, which is supposed to remove us from the Houston Galveston Area Council. That too is a matter of democracy. He doesn't like the plaintiffs in that, and he is not following that. Proposition B passed with 65% in 2023, where we're supposed to get proper representation on the Houston Galveston Area project. The city doesn't have the weight on it that it should. He is not following that. That is a direct matter of democracy. And I'll also point out on the budget, because it makes me sad, 60% of the money, 60% of the money goes to police and fire. Okay? Sometimes I think we ought to rename Houston. We should just call it Police Department, Fire Department. That should be the name of the city.
That's all we're doing, right?
I'll tell you, there's a new there was a firefighter contract last year. We talked a little bit about that here. The new police contract, and the new police contract makes it more difficult to discipline. That's a segue into our next topic. But it is now, if you can believe it, more difficult to discipline HPD officers at the very same time that Trump is making it more difficult to prosecute and hold accountable police officers across the country, and it's disturbing.
Yeah, that is shameful. That is completely and entire shameful. Now, let me ask you. There was another topic that we wanted to discuss with regards to, I think and tell me if you're ready for this yet. With regards to the executive order and/or police force and implementation.
Right. Correct. So, Trump. This is again connected, as I just referenced. This is then from the Houston Chronicle about the police contract here. This is connected to what Egberto said and what we'll get to in a second. The tentative agreement, this is the new police contract, will also give officers the opportunity to reduce any suspensions of 3 days or less down to discipline without a suspension. Officers will only be, this is what the sentence says, officers will only be orally interrogated by internal affairs if criminal activity is suspected. Now, there's just one sentence in that, so how I read it is, if an officer is accused of a criminal act, it can't go to whatever department of the offense that they've committed. Officers will only be orally interrogated by internal affairs if criminal activity is suspected. So it really concerns me. And the firefighter contract had the same lessenings of discipline, whatever the specific terms were. So we have that process here. It was difficult enough already. So Trump issued an executive order last week that talks about how police, in essence, can do whatever they want, then also lays a framework for the military cooperating with local police. So now we're getting into martial law, emergency decrees. Let me read this section 2. Egberto and I were discussing this before we went on the air. Legal defense of law enforcement officers. This is Trump's executive order. The Attorney General shall take all appropriate action to create a mechanism to provide legal resources and indemnification to law enforcement officers who unjustly incur expenses and liabilities, right, to their view, unjustly, for actions taken during the performance of their duties. This mechanism shall include the use of private sector pro bono assistance for such law enforcement officers. So we've heard about the law firms who are being extorted, it seems to me, to cave, capitulate, not oppose Trump, give free money. Private sector pro bono assistance for such law enforcement officers. So it seems to me, Egberto, do you see what they're extorting them for? And since it's up to the administration, who's been treated unjustly? I'm going to wager that's all of them.
I think that's a good wager. I think that is a good wager. Well, you know what? We're kind of into the show, and I forgot to do what I normally do during these shows, and that is to welcome everybody that's on in the chat, or many of those in the chat. So Lisa Blair from Atlanta, welcome aboard. Joe from Los Angeles, California, welcome aboard. We also have let's see, Eric Hayes, who is on board from Kingwood, Atascocita in the house. We have quite a few on Substack that I can't completely go through, but Angelo Zenia, Win Masons, John A says the cuts in Medicare will indirectly kill many people. Why to give billionaires money? Billionaires won't die if they don't have more billions of dollars. Peter Brandon, welcome. Sabrina, Bonnie Atkins. Deborah says Republicans want to end the lives of the poor, elderly, and the disabled, so they have no reason to pay taxes. Suzanne Join is here with us. John A also says very much sounds better after we fix the thing. Natalia Lago says thanks, Joe. And Ramon de la Fuente is here with us as well. Continue, please, Neil.
Let me go back and just for 20 seconds. The budget is a matter for everyone. That's exactly right. I encourage you, I say not you, but you in the audience, you the individual, become that budget expert. Become that expert on the police contract. This is a big city. There's a hearing this morning about the police contract in Amy Peck's Public Safety Committee. There's not any advocate against the contract. It's all city officials. There was a budget hearing yesterday at Houston City Council. Only 2 people spoke. And I encourage you to become that budget expert. Individual citizens can make a difference at these things. And I encourage folks out there to do it. This is a big city, and this city really is too big not to have an active, informed group that's offering commentary on this police contract, on its specifics beyond what we're talking about. So I encourage you, wherever you are, become an expert on some local policy matter. Let me just talk about 2 more sections of this executive order. Section 4, using national security assets for law and order. Now, you get it already, so everything I'm saying here it will be redundant after this. Within 90 days of this order, the Attorney General and Secretary of Defense, in consultation with the Secretary of Homeland Security, shall increase the provision of excess military and national security assets, whatever that means, but you get its meaning, in local jurisdictions to assist state and local law enforcement. Shall determine how military and national security assets, training, non-lethal capabilities, right? Sure. Mm-hmm. And personnel can most be utilized to prevent crime by their definition of crime. Then Section 5, holding state and local officials accountable. And you saw Tom Holman, the immigration guy, telegraphing last week that they were going to arrest officials. The Attorney General shall pursue all necessary legal remedies and enforcement with willfully and unlawful. So prosecution of any violations of federal criminal law. So what it goes on to say is that if you're if you're an elected official, to their view, obstructing them from what they intend, you are subject to arrest. And there was, you saw the judge arrested in Wisconsin about 10
California.
days ago.
Yeah.
And there was a 2 or 3 minute statement I watched, you can Google it, by Governor Evers of Wisconsin, because there had been talk of arresting Governor Evers. He's not been arrested, but Governor Evers just basically said, I'm not doing anything wrong, and you do what you need to do. So this lays the groundwork. For immunity, full immunity for police officers. We're finishing that work here. And the police contract, Mayor Whitmire, who I'll keep saying, he says he's a Democrat, he should be ensuring that the police are, and there are no performance standards tied to this police contract. There's no performance standards tied to this police contract. It was expressly not done. That's been written about as well. So we are in a perilous moment. Our local officials should be responding to this. Our police should have more strictures upon them, since federally they're being allowed to run wild. And you can bet that this contract will pass City Council unanimously. I would wager good money. There'll be a few questions, where's the money? This and that. It'll pass unanimously. My recollection is, don't hold me 100% to this, but my recollection, nearly every one of those council members is endorsed by the police union. If it's not all of them, it's just but 1 or 2 of them. And in the 1 or 2 of them, the police are fine with them, but they just bet on the wrong horse at election time.
Even Letitia Plummer?
Letitia Plummer is endorsed by the police union, yes.
Wow.
Yes, and she was taking pictures. So at the time of, just a little background, at the time of George Floyd, Councilwoman Plummer had just been sworn in. She was new. She did criticize the police. She was ostracized on city council, if you remember that, Egberto, by other Democrats. Almost like a high school type atmosphere. Mayor Turner and other Democrats. And then I think this is true. I'm not the only one who thinks this. I think Councilwoman Plummer thought that there was a progressive community in Houston or folks concerned about these issues who would have her back. And frankly, there wasn't. She got out there on a limb. There were 1 or 2 days where people signed up to testify at hearings, and she could not create the momentum. And she was treated like a pariah on council, and she still expresses that she did not get along with Mayor Turner. I'm going too deep into the weeds on this, but she did try, actually, and both in the institutional council and from the public, she didn't have the backing, and she's moved on from that.
Well, that is interesting because she still gets elected very frequently. Get at large, right? She has her strength, and I think she's a decent person. It was, to me, disappointing at election time in 2023 that she took that police union endorsement, but she did. Well, you know what? I am, as you explained it, I'm on when you said, in effect, progressives didn't come out as they should to support and have her back. Sometimes you do certain things for survival. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's a shame. And I think that speaks that the progressive movement has a lot of work to do here in Houston. The fact that we even have a mayor that will defer so often and support so often, not only people that supposedly don't share the values of the city. Let's look at him supporting going to the fundraiser for Dan Crenshaw. and another fundraiser he went to. I can't remember that he skipped. I can't remember which one that was. But yeah, I think it's time
he was going to go to the Crime Stoppers meeting with Greg Abbott over the week. He didn't go. And he didn't go because there was public spotlight on it. I'm convinced of that. Mayor Whitmire was supposed to go to a Crime Stoppers meeting where Governor Abbott did bash the judges. I watched it, so you didn't have to. Yeah. And he was going to go. And I encourage you to go to the Twitter feed, Facebook feed of the police union and look who they amplify and look what they say. Individual police officers are autonomous individuals. They're going to have to make decisions about if they're going to follow unconstitutional orders. We're not going to judge people in advance. People when there's a lawful and procedural day of account for what Trump has done, people who have acted unconstitutionally or taken our rights are going to be held to a lawful account. So I'm talking about the police union. I'm going to grant police officers their individuality to proceed. I'm talking about the police union,
right,
as a group that does not represent overall the values of the city of Houston. And Mayor Whitmire's political closeness to them is disappointing. And lastly, on this, the firefighters union, the same. Politico reported last year that our firefighters union had a hand in the National Firefighters Union not endorsing Vice President Harris. So when you see what's going on in our city, the cuts to NOAA, the National Weather Service, loss of jobs at the Texas Medical Center, all the impacts, direct impacts. Who's coming here for the World Cup? Trump and Vance were telling people to leave the minute they got here over the week. Don't look around, but just go home, would you? They're impacting Houston directly beyond the health insurance cuts we're going to talk about soon. And you can recall your firefighters union for being part of that.
That's a darn shame. Anyway, John A. says, Neil, your information is very important. I did not know about the issues you spoke about. So thank you, Neil, for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Let's see. Deborah says, oh, my God, if I had young children or teens now, I would move out of the country and no way would I have a baby in this country today. Sad that that's a sentiment I've heard from a lot of folks. Okay, let's go ahead before we get into the other sections. Go ahead and bring, let's see. Betty, come on in. Betty, I haven't heard from Betty in a while.
No good.
Yeah. Let's see. Hi, Alberto. I'm coming around the mountain.
How you doing, beautiful?
Everybody. I'm fine. I'm taking care of a baby possum. Everybody knows. Yeah. That's true. He's a darling child. Everybody knows Trump has dropped all his marbles. He has hard himself, and he is so nasty pick throwbacks, and they're all set up to we the people, the heartbeat of America, us, to cut our safety rope, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And no matter what color your eyes are, my eyes want to look him straight in his eyes and say, hang down your head for once in your life. We can do this. And then some. Trump and his kind, women don't take a chance. And we skate by with our legs crossed. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sis. Have a good one. Love you too, girl. Let's go to Brother Tag. Come on in, Tag. Whoops. We're coming now. There you go, Tag. You're on now, Tag.
Hi, guys. You guys are talking about the Constitution this morning somewhat.
Sure.
With Neil.
Go ahead, sir.
Well, last night I was listening to an interview with John Roberts. Did anybody see that?
No, I didn't.
No, sir.
Yeah. John had kind of a burr under his saddle about the separation between the executive branch and the Congress and of course the judiciary, and
right.
Our supreme leader there in the court was definitely said that separation between the executive branches and the courts have got to be maintained. So I was happy to see Roberts taking a stand about that, because he's just sending that message out that we don't bow for anybody.
Well, I don't know. Let me interrupt you a second, okay? Because I want the people here informed. Roberts is the same guy who gave Donald Trump and his court gave Donald Trump just about what I call infinite immunity. So what he's saying is hogwash, whatever he says about the separation of powers when he bent the knee for Donald Trump. There's a whole lot of things that should have been done before Donald Trump got elected that they purposely delayed. So the Supreme Court right now is really a fraud. But continue, my brother.
Well, I think we have to have hold out hope that the Supreme Court, especially John Roberts, can see the error of their ways and try to turn that around.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
And if anybody can do that, it will be John Roberts in the Supreme Court. I mean, they can turn on a dime.
Yeah.
And the courts have been, ruling against Trump. And I guess my whole point here is Trump continues to add another straw, unconstitutional straw on the camel's back, and another one. Pretty soon, there's no way, and they already have, but there's no way that they're going to just stand by and let Trump continue to load the camel.
Here's a problem that I see, though, Tag. Here's a big problem that I see. That immunity that they gave the president means that the president has no fear in testing all limits. And the only people that would pay the price in testing those limits are his subordinates. His subordinates didn't get the immunity. He did. Generally, it's the subordinates who execute laws. Let's see what happens. So, I mean, that is my big concern, my brother. That's my big concern. Anyway, continue, sir.
I agree with you 100%.
And that he disobeys the court, even if
Go ahead, Neil. What's that?
That they the court has a turn of heart, but he disobeys that too.
Right. Anyway, anything else, Tag? I have quite a few more calls, and I have 3 subjects I want to cover.
Yep. No, we're great. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you, my brother. Have a good one. All right, let's go to Jim. Come on in, Jim.
Hello there. Y'all are talking about the police unions. I made a decision years ago that I would not vote for anybody that's endorsed by the police union. And I've so far been able to do that. And I've had people come up to me, will you vote for this candidate? And they're supported by the police union. I'll say, well, no, I'm voting for their opponent. So,
sir, where do you live? Where do you live?
I live near the Heights.
You live in the city. Okay, but it's at city council. You vote? Do you vote in our municipal elections?
Well, I vote in the. Well, yeah, I do vote in the elections.
Right. Yes, sir. I mean, a lot of Democrats are endorsed by them. They do endorse some Democrats, especially in safe Democratic districts. I think it is important. I've hoped that this would happen. That we normalize actually your attitude to ask hard questions about taking police union support. So I think you're on the right track. It is in city council elections. It's a difficult course that you're suggesting because many of the most viable or likely candidates, Democrats, are endorsed by them.
There's really no reason to do that, to vote for somebody because they're endorsed by a police union. It just doesn't make any sense. You can be to safety and everything else, but it doesn't make any sense to make a judgment on somebody based on that somehow that they're going to do a better job because the council and the government, they should be in control of the police, not the other way around. But in some cases, it looks like the police are more in control of the politicians than
You nailed it. You nailed it. There was a police chief in Baton Rouge, I think it was, that got fired, vis-a-vis resigned because of some issues similar to that. It's amazing how much power the police unions have. Even the police chief doesn't have control of his people. You can actually say that the union boss is more powerful than the police chief. It's a shame.
Yeah. That's a big deal. I'm very focused on that. The police need to be under civilian control, especially at this moment. Let me tell you. And these unions that go around municipalities to get what they want from red state legislators, at this point, this is a real danger with these people now in control of the federal government.
Well, the police unions are executing the police for what it was originally formed for. And you guys looked that up, what police was originally formed for. Yeah. Anyway, Jim, I got to go to another caller. Let's go ahead and go. Thank you very much, Jim. Let's go to Bruce. Come on in, Bruce.
Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
I'm doing fine, my brother. Talk to me.
Yeah, from my previous calls that I'm kind of a smart aleck. All right. But I can vigorously disagree with someone and still show civility, empathy, and respect. I got that from you, but I already had kind of that in me anyway. So even though I'm very capable, I will not give you a smart aleck nickname for Brian. I'm going to show respect. Well, I won't do it. I respect the man. The other thing I called in, I'll make it pretty quick, is there's a woman I talk to once in a while. Her son is in the military career. And she told me, she said, I don't think he's a true Trumper. He just loves to argue with me. But she told me that he told her that neither he nor anyone he serves with would ever take arms against U.S. citizens. They would consider that a dishonest order, and they would disobey it. So that gave me some hope. I know you're short on time, so I'm done, even though I got other
Bruce,
stuff like this.
Talk to me about it tomorrow, but thank you for saying that. I have that sentiment as well. I am of the belief, I know a whole lot of military people, and if Trump were to ask them to turn arms on the regular American citizen, I don't think they will. So I agree with you 100%. All right, let's go to Bard. Come on in, Bard.
Good morning, sir. I was wondering if you and Neil could give some details, maybe some data about why you are against Crime Stoppers.
Well, Crime Stoppers has an affinity for working, in my opinion, I don't know what Neil is going to say, but I know Crime Stopper has a Republican bias, and a Republican bias is an anti-American, anti-citizen bias. But Neil, what's your thoughts?
I feel that Crime Stoppers, in essence, has become aligned with the Republican Party, aligned with Greg Abbott, and has become a partisan entity. That has been my clear perception of what they're doing. And I think also they have a view of public safety that does not seem to include attacks on our civil liberties, attacks on democracy. I don't know what public safety there is without democracy, and that in their alignment with many of these Republicans, they are involved with some of the very people cutting federal law enforcement or supporting the January 6th pardons. So I feel that they've become an overly partisan shop.
Okay. Anything else, Bart?
Well, I guess that matches the FBI statistics that 90% of the crime is committed by Democrats. So that makes sense now.
Actually, that's interesting because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but criminals in the jail, there were repeated stories that inmates voted for Trump. Trump had and as I recall, in Cook County, Chicago, and in whatever precinct in Washington, D.C. the jail was, Trump ran very strongly among inmates, white inmates, but also made very significant gains among Black and Latino, and they saw one of their own. I'm not making that up. I haven't Googled it, but there were repeated stories that inmates moved very significantly. So you'll see these stories about people registering inmates who have the right to vote wherever they are. And at this point, they're registering Republicans.
It's amazing. And that goes to, Republicans are, again, and I'm talking about Republican politicians and Republican politician adherers are generally more criminally inclined. That's not up for debate. But anyhow, thank you, Bart, for your thoughts, my brother. Have a good one. Let's go to Brian. Come on in, Brian.
Yes. Good morning. Good morning. Yesterday you said that the United States is not ready for a Black woman president. That's totally wrong. Why don't you look up the difference between Sheila Jackson Lee, who was born in Queens, New York, and came here to Houston and spent 30 years and had exactly 11 bills. 11 out of 30 years. Look up Barbara Jordan, how eloquently she spoke. She was born here in Houston. She was born here. She wanted to go to the University of Texas and could not due to what? Segregation. Just look her up. She wanted 550,000 cap on immigration status for certain people. 550,000. Bill Clinton was going to let put Barbara Jordan up for the Supreme Court. Due to her health, she couldn't do it. Now, compare the two people. Like Jasmine Crockett, listen to her now and listen to Barbara Jordan then. Is this your Democratic Party now? Is why they have 22% rate?
Actually, it is. And I think if more Democrats would fight like Jasmine Crockett, if more Democrats would speak eloquently like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if more Democrats would have the values of Bernie Sanders, I think even people with your persuasion, not necessarily you, but MAGA, who realize that the people who have their interests both in policy and in values are in fact progressive Democrats, I think things would be a lot different. In fact, I think that is pointed out when you do the polls and find out what people want. It always turns out to be what progressives stand for. But Brian, I do want to get into Medicare, Medicaid, and some other topics. So give me your last sentence so I can move on, my brother.
22% rate. Listen.
What else you want to add, sir? Anything else? All right, let's move on. Go ahead.
The Marshall Project, which is it studies criminal justice issues. It's well regarded. 54,000 survey respondents of inmates last year. 35% identified as independent. 22% as Republican. 18% as Democrats. And 60% of white inmates said they would vote for Trump. 39% of Black men said that they would vote for Trump. And the number isn't here, but there were significant swings. So I'm glad that came up. And these Republican criminals are running around there, and I'm glad many of them have been detained.
You know what? That's true, right? I mean, And
Right.
it completely refutes what our brother Bard had to say. I mean, that we always say when you're projecting usually points to the ones that are the culprits. Anyway, I want to get onto this the first issue that I told you guys about, and this is very important. And by the way, Natalie Lugo, I want to say she says something that is important. Natalie Lago, she says, won't Trump just pardon his subordinates for crimes they committed because they carried out POTUS orders? I'm glad that you kind of triggered me on that one, Natalie, because you're correct. And that's why I said the biggest danger that the Supreme Court did was to give him immunity, because, yes, that would be left open for him to do. Okay, so let's remember that. Deborah J says, every Democrat I know voted for Kamala Harris and for Obama in the past. Obama was a transformational president, and that's when I knew Obama would win. When people denied their own prejudices to vote for the things were so bad to vote for a Barack Obama, that was one thing. The problem about it is, and a lot of people give me trouble when I say this. In a patriarchal society, the people that have the biggest problems to get elected are women, let alone black women. Now, Hillary Clinton, and look, I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan, but Hillary Clinton was the most competent person running when it comes politically, what she knows, etc. And yes, she won the popular vote by 3 million votes, but based on who she was running against, that is a disgrace that such competency could have lost to a moron. And that is the patriarchal nature of our country. Look, I am from a patriarchal country, and I have atoned for my sins. But I tell you what, in America, both women and men must atone for their patriarchal slant that is still endemic within our psyche. Because again, look at what we have done to our country. Look at what we have done to our economy because of our prejudices. All right, let's go ahead and talk about I wonder, right now you constantly hear people tell you, oh, it's not true. They're not really trying to take away your Medicaid or all these other issues. Here's the deal. Democrats asked the Congressional Budget Office, a nonpartisan agency that analyzes the impact of legislation, to review changes that House Republicans are debating making to Medicaid in order to finance President Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. That's the name he wants to give it. One Big Beautiful Bill. It's amazing. It's the BBB, like the better. What was it that Biden had again? Build Back Better. Right. It's same thing. BBB, Build Back Better, right?
Right.
Which would extend his 2017 tax cuts for the rich and fund his evil immigration plans. The CBO's report showed that the varying Republican plans would lead as many as, listen, folks, 8.6 million low-income Americans to lose their Medicaid coverage and either have to pay for coverage or go without insurance. This isn't from Democrats. This is from the CBO. In analyzing 5 different Republican proposals to cut Medicaid spending, the CBO found that all of them would lead to many, many Americans losing their Medicaid. The first one that they want to do is eliminate a loophole that states would use. They'll pay the hospitals a little bit more to get a little bit more from the government to sort of squash things out. So they want to eliminate that loophole. That's a Medicaid cut. They won't sell it to you as a Medicaid cut. It is a Medicaid cut. But I want to read another one that's very dangerous. It says the following. I'm not reading the whole article. It says the CBO found that if Republicans capped spending for all Medicaid enrollees, because that's what they want to do now. They want to say, okay, Texas, you have 1 million people on Medicaid. We're going to limit you to X amount per person. It would caused as many as 5.8 million people to be kicked off of Medicaid, with 2.9 million people becoming uninsured. The CBO has looked at Republicans' plan to lower the federal medical assistance percentage in each state. Lowering FMAP rates would negatively impact, come on, Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, and all these states. Listen to this. Red states, MAGA states. The CBO also looked at Republicans' plans to lower the federal medical assistance percentage each state receives. Lowering FMAP rates would negatively impact Republican-controlled states the most, as many of those states receive the highest FMAP rates. Republican-controlled states make up 9 of the 10 states with the highest FMAP percentages, according to the Kaiser Foundation, a health news outlet. If Republicans reduce FMAP rates, 5.5 million would lose their Medicaid coverage immediately. Ultimately, cutting Medicaid to finance tax cuts that primarily benefit the wealthy is politically toxic. Polls show voters like Medicaid and don't want Republicans to use cuts the program to fund tax plans. Vulnerable Republicans lawmakers seem to understand this. But here's the thing. This is what gets me. You notice what this article says. Vulnerable Republicans would not want to pass this budget, which they're being forced to do right now. But why is it only restricted to vulnerable Republicans? Why is it that not every single Republican... Look, let's go to rural counties in Texas. All of these rural counties in Texas are going to likely lose their health care. They're going to lose their nursing homes. They're going to lose their hospitals because we want to give more money to wealthy people. Okay? So why is this article saying just Republicans in states, in these marginal states are going to be in trouble? No. Every Republican who votes for this, and they need them all, those people are in those particular districts would like, if they're thinking about their own well-being, how could they possibly vote for them? And what that tells me is that Democrats and independents should go into every single county. And this is where I blame Democrats for not understanding politics, or simply plain elitist politics, if you will, coastal politics. You got to go into Yoakum, Texas. You got to go into Brenham, Texas. You got to go into every single town where these Republicans are that are going to vote to cut your Medicaid in your particular district, in your particular county. How can you possibly vote for that person who is going to kill your grandma by having them lose insurance? Who's going to kill your disabled kid by having them lose insurance? How could you possibly vote for your executioner? I want all of you that are listening to my voice, specifically MAGA, specifically Republicans, because independents and Democrats know what they're doing already. But you voting for your executioner, does that make any sense? Anyway, Neil, your thoughts before I move on to why the rich doesn't even deserve this cuts we're talking about.
Right. You've seen Democratic members of Congress have been going into districts that are not theirs. I think that's been effective. I would love to see it in the Texas legislature. If you ask our Democratic members why they don't do things like that, they say they won't get anything at all. I would just say the circumstances are so severe at this point. I would love to see a greater level of aggression and taking it right to them. And I think people would be receptive in these areas, frankly, to be spoken to and respected. I think it'd be safer and go a little better than they think.
I have no doubt about it. Let me tell you, I live in a very red area. And, I don't know what my neighbors say behind my back, but I know that we are very cordial and we have great talks and we sit down in the coffee shops and we discuss, we argue, we exchange ideas, all that sort of stuff. Have I convinced a few? I have. there are some that are cultural Republicans that will never overtly change. But when one of them comes to me and slap me on the back and say, "You're going to like me," and I'm like, "Why?" And he said, like, "I am voting the way you want me to vote, but guess what? I am no damn Democrat."
Sure.
That is progress.
Yeah.
That is progress. So I mean, it is so important. But again, when I speak again, I think these people who write these articles need to write them with a different tone, because when you say that Republicans in swing districts will have a problem voting for the bill, my answer should be every Republican voting for the bill should be in danger. And if the articles start putting out that message so that everybody reading that message really sees that your vote for a particular, and I'm educating here. I'm not telling you who to vote for. We're educating here. That's the type of what we're designed to do here. But anyone who votes for their executioner is voting against their own interests. Now, I want to move on to another subject here that's related to the Medicaid cuts. Again, folks, I want you to listen in clearly. They are intent on cutting Medicaid because that is where the money is. Most of the money is in the Pentagon, or rather in the defense budget, but they won't touch that because they're paid not to touch that. In fact, the current budget increases. Think about this. Our military budget has increased by over $100 billion, 160 if I recall correctly. And our ICE budget has been increased by several tens of $billions. ICE for immigration problem that we no longer have, right? Billions of dollars. And to cover the billions of dollars for ICE, the billions of dollar increase in the military, and the billions of dollars that we want to give to the wealthy people, you must suffer. Your mother in a nursing home must suffer. Your child who's disabled on Medicaid must suffer. Your cousin and your aunt who's on Medicaid must suffer. They must likely not have insurance and put them closer to death, your executioner. Now, for those who think that, well, we can't tax these rich people, we can't tax them. First of all, I want to tell you categorically, and anybody who wants to debate this, I am ready for that debate. Most of the rich, first, there are two kinds of rich. There is the rich who got their rich because it was inherited. And there's the rich who used the capitalist system and made it understand the machinations of the capitalist system and became rich. And then there are the real rich people who are broke. And those are the innovators and everybody else. Now, here's the deal, folks. A study was done, right, in Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, and Washington. They all raised taxes and raised billions in taxes on wealthy people. Their economies thrived. There are some rules in Keynesian economics that will explain why that happened, but I don't have enough time to go through that. I just want to read a couple of paragraphs because we got to get out of here. Increase in taxes on high income earners helped raise revenues without hampering the wealth of the millionaire class in Massachusetts and Washington, according to a new policy brief from the Institute for Policy Studies and State Revenue Alliance. A common counter to raising taxes on the rich is that they will simply flee their home states to jurisdictions with friendlier tax codes. While some tax migration is inevitable, the wealthy that move to avoid taxes represent a tiny percentage of their own social class. The 1% are incentivized not to move because of family, social networks, and local business knowledge, and just the flavor of the state. Our findings support the case against tax flight. the number of individuals with net worth of at least 7 figures continue to expand in both Massachusetts and Washington after tax hikes. The millionaire class has grown by 38.6% in Massachusetts and 46.9% in Washington over the past 2 years. The 7-figure clubs in these states saw their wealth grow by 580 million and 748 million respectively. After you have acquired a certain amount of capital, folks, it pretty much works for you, which is a bad word. I don't like to use that word because capital don't work, you work. What it is the wealthy makes their money on your back. Asking them to pay back into the system that gave them that wealth is the right thing to do. Neil, we're close to close up. Let me go to Jack first, and then I'll close with you. Jack, you have anything to add, sir?
Yeah, it's World Donkey Day, and Trump lost his marbles.
Isn't that what Betty said?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, Neil. Neil, the founder of the Houston Democracy Project, as well as the march on Senator Cornyn, the protest against Senator Cornyn. Give me a quick closer, brother.
Great. Local democracy matters. Authoritarianism will require a local infrastructure. I encourage you to ask your Republican Houston City Council members, especially, how could you do it? And aren't you responsible for our cuts to the National Weather Service and job losses at the Texas Medical Center as they cut cancer research?
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your website.
HoustonDemocracyProject.com, and there's a blog, update the blog all the time, very local. Please give it a look and then act on what you see.
Thank you so kindly, folks. The rest of the program is at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. You can email me directly, and I read all my emails at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. I love you all, and I say that sincerely from the depths of my heart. I was speaking to Silva by the way, at 9:00 today, we're going to have a Substack live with Pedro Silva, where we are going to talk about love in our community as well. Anyway, folks, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out. Support for this show, Politics Done Right, comes from politicsdoneright.com, publishers of How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willies. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to hear